Paris in the summer feels like a memory you're not sure actually happened. The air is warm but soft, like it's holding its breath. The light hits the buildings just right, and even the shadows feel golden. But that's the thing about memories, they follow you. Even halfway across the world. Belly couldn't sleep that night. She lay in her tiny apartment in Le Marais, the windows open, the sound of the city humming below. Somewhere nearby, a man played jazz on a balcony. In another life, that music might have been romantic. Tonight, it felt like a soundtrack for confusion. For longing. For things left unfinished. She kept seeing Conrad's face, not the version of him that left, but this new one. Softer somehow. Tired in a way she didn't understand. There were things behind his eyes he didn't say. And she was starting to realize, maybe she wasn't the only one carrying ghosts. The next morning, he texted her. Coffee? There's a place by the canal. It's quiet. Thought you might like it. She shouldn't have gone. But she did. They sat across from each other on an iron terrace, sunlight spilling between them like a secret. At first, the conversation stayed surface level, coffee, travel, books. But she saw the tension in his shoulders. The way he kept tapping his fingers against the table, like he was holding something back. Finally, she asked the question that had burned through her since yesterday. Why are you here, Conrad? He didn't look surprised. He just looked sad. I needed to leave. Everything at home felt too loud. Too close. She waited. My dad remarried. Jeremiah stopped talking to me. And Cousins just isn't the same without her. Susanna. Her name still hit like a wave. It had been years, but some losses don't age. They just settle in your bones. I kept thinking maybe if I got far enough away, I'd stop feeling so lost, she offered. He nodded. I came to Paris hoping to forget. And did you? She asked. He looked at her then, straight into her eyes. I did. Until I saw you. There it was again. That pull. That gravity between them that never really disappeared. But Belly wasn't the same girl from Cousins Beach. She had spent too long rebuilding herself from the ruins he left behind. I'm not the person you remember, she said. He smiled, a sad, knowing smile. Neither am I. It would have been easier if one of them had been angry. If they'd screamed, cried, accused. But this wasn't about blame. It was about timing. And timing had never been on their side. Later, they walked again. Paris had become their safe zone, a city big enough to get lost in, yet quiet enough to feel like the only two people in it. They passed street artists painting faceless lovers, couples laughing in the park, and old women selling postcards no one sent anymore. Everything looked romantic. But nothing felt certain. They sat on the edge of the canal as the sun dipped lower. Do you ever wish it had been different? She asked. All the time, he said. But if it had been, maybe we wouldn't be here now. It was an impossible answer. Honest, but cruel. Because here wasn't enough. Not yet. And then she asked the question she wasn't sure she wanted the answer to. Is there someone else? He hesitated, a fraction of a second too long. There was, he admitted. But it didn't mean anything. Not like us. Belly looked down at the water, rippling with color and reflection. That's the thing about love, even when it breaks, it doesn't disappear. It just shifts, hiding in corners, waiting for a look, a word, a city like Paris to bring it rushing back. And even though her heart should have been guarded, it wasn't. Not really. Because even after everything, part of her still belonged to him. And maybe it always would. But loving Conrad Fisher had always come with a cost. And Paris? Paris wasn't the end of their story. It was just where the truth started bleeding through. First time she saw him again, the world didn't stop. It slowed, like the tide pulling back before the wave crashes. Belly had convinced herself it wouldn't matter anymore. Not after everything they'd said. Or didn't say. Not after the fights, the letters never sent, the nights spent staring at a phone that never lit up with his name. She told herself she was over it. Over him. But the truth was simple, she wasn't. It had been a year since Conrad Fisher vanished from her life with nothing more than a half-smile and a silent goodbye. No explanation. No promise. Just, gone. She had spent a long winter learning how to breathe again without him. But summer has a way of calling things back to life. And this summer, she wasn't at Cousin's Beach. She was in Paris. Her mother had thought it would be good for her, the distance, the culture, the distraction. And it was, until it wasn't. Because fate doesn't check your itinerary. It doesn't care about distance or logic. So when she turned the corner near Rue Saint-Honoré and saw him standing there, sun-touched and older, reading a book in a language he probably couldn't speak, she stopped breathing. Conrad. The name hit her chest like thunder. He didn't see her at first. And maybe that would have been better. Maybe if she had walked away, kept going, she could have kept pretending. But something about him, the way he tilted his head and thought, the way his lips moved as he read silently, it brought back the thousand little things she thought she had forgotten. The way he used to read to her in the dark. The way he used to say her name like it mattered. And then he looked up. Their eyes met. Time didn't stop. It shattered. Belly? His voice still had that slow, careful rhythm, like he was afraid to speak too loud and scare something off. She wanted to be angry. She wanted to ask him why. Why he left. Why he didn't write. Why he let her go. But all she could say was, "Hi." The silence that followed said more than any words ever could. A silence thick with everything unsaid. A silence that begged for answers neither of them were ready to give. They walked the city that evening, not like lovers, not like strangers. Something in between. He didn't explain why he was there, and she didn't ask. Instead, they talked about the city. The lights. The smell of warm bread and old stone. The Seine at night. Safe topics. Until he said her name again. Belly, do you ever think about us? She stopped walking. Her heart did, too. Sometimes, she admitted. Mostly when I try not to. He looked at her then, like he did that first summer, back when things were simpler. Before Susanna died. Before promises were broken. Before they hurt each other in ways only love can. I never stopped, he said. Thinking about us. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a confession. It was something messier. Something real. And it cracked open the part of her she had spent months trying to seal shut. They didn't kiss. Not yet. Paris may be the city of love, but this wasn't a love story you could rush. This was a story haunted by what-ifs and almosts. A story waiting to be rewritten. And in that moment, under the Paris sky, Belly realized something terrifying and beautiful: the past wasn't done with them. And maybe, neither was fate. Some love stories never get a clean break, just pauses between chapters. That's what this felt like. Not a reunion. Not a beginning. Just an open space between the versions of themselves they used to be. Days passed, but neither of them said goodbye. Belly found herself drifting toward Conrad like gravity, the kind you can't see but always feel. He didn't ask her to stay. She didn't offer. They just kept showing up. Morning walks. Quiet dinners. Long silences that spoke louder than words. One evening, they ended up at a little bookstore tucked between two alleys. Dusty, cramped, filled with stories someone once loved. Belly ran her fingers along the spines, breathing in the scent of old paper and lost time. Conrad stood beside her, watching, always watching, like he was trying to remember who she really was. You used to love this kind of place, he said. I still do, she answered, not looking at him. He picked up a book and flipped through it. Then, almost without thinking, he said, "I used to write about you." She froze. "What?" He didn't meet her eyes. "Last year, when things got bad, I couldn't talk to anyone. So I wrote. Letters I never sent. Pages and pages. All about you." Belly felt the floor tilt. She had spent so long thinking he'd just moved on. Forgotten her. But he hadn't. He'd just hidden it in ink and silence. "I thought I was the only one who kept remembering," she said quietly. "You were the only one I couldn't forget."